This is Plant-Based Briefing, Why Dairy is Hiding in So Many Foods, Part 2 by Seth Millstein at sentientmedia.org. I'm Marian Erickson. This is the Plant-Based Podcast where I curate and narrate a variety of articles with permission on various plant-based and vegan topics in about 10 minutes or less every weekday. And today's article was longer than that, so it's a two-parter. I read part 1 yesterday, so go back and listen to that first and then come here for part 2. And now let's get to today's Plant-Based Briefing. Why Dairy is Hiding in So Many Foods, Part 2 by Seth Millstein at sentientmedia.org. From historical accident to entrenched policy. Government support during and after World War II caused the dairy industry to grow so much that it soon became an indispensable part of the post-war agricultural economy. This compelled the USDA, with its mandate to support American agricultural interests, to continue and increase its support for dairy farmers, creating something of a vicious cycle. They basically created their own monster, Hamilton tells Sentient. They grew the dairy industry, and now the industry is so large that its arms are in every aspect of government. This entanglement takes many forms. The dairy lobby is powerful and gives millions of dollars to lawmakers every election cycle. But also all 50 states now produce milk. This means that even without any lobbying money, every senator counts on the votes of dairy farmers to get elected, a highly relevant fact, given that Senate approval would be needed to remove the dairy requirement from the school lunch program. Hamilton also highlights the role of the revolving door in dairy politics. This is when lawmakers and regulators transition into working as lobbyists or consultants for the same industries that they once regulated, and vice versa. Tom Vilsack is one example of this. He went from leading the USDA to working for Dairy Management, Inc., essentially a trade group for the dairy industry, before then returning to lead the USDA again. Another example would be somebody like Robert Post, who served as acting director of the USDA's Center for Nutrition Policy before joining Chobani, the yogurt company, as senior director for nutritional affairs. In effect, the revolving door gives certain industries an enormous influence on public policy, and this is certainly the case with the dairy industry. In the beginning, it was the USDA incentivizing the dairy industry to grow, Hamilton says. Now it's the industry incentivizing the government to support it. Dairy checkoffs bring dominoes to schools. One way in which the government has helped inject dairy into so many foods is through the Dairy Research and Promotion Program, also known as the Dairy Checkoff. This is really a variety of different programs and initiatives ostensibly overseen by the USDA, but carried out by quasi-private organizations at the federal, state, and local level. Dairy Management, Inc., the organization Vilsack worked for, is one of many dairy checkoff programs. The Dairy Checkoff funds promotions for dairy products, such as the infamous Got Milk campaign. It also collaborates with major brands to figure out ways to cram as much dairy as possible into their foods. It started with school lunches, Hamilton tells Sentient, but now dairy is getting into everything for the same reason. They need to create a demand for surplus dairy. Take McDonald's. The Dairy Checkoff partnered with the burger chain in 2004, and pretty soon there were 6 Dairy Checkoff employees on site at McDonald's corporate headquarters, working with the company to innovate new dairy-based menu items and increase the dairy content in existing offerings. This eventually resulted in the introduction of 27 new dairy-based items to McDonald's menu. It's not just McDonald's. The Dairy Checkoff's partnership with Taco Bell resulted in the chain unveiling an all-dairy breakfast menu, the grilled cheese burrito, and the quesalupa, which has 5 times as much cheese as a regular taco. Pizza Hut's 3-cheese stuffed pizza crust was born out of its partnership with the Dairy Checkoff, as was Starbucks' short-lived Vivano smoothie, which utilized dairy-based protein. Really, my job here is to make sure dairy has a presence and to make sure it's on the menu, a Dairy Checkoff employee who works at Taco Bell's corporate headquarters told a trade publication in 2020. These kinds of government-funded corporate partnerships are also responsible for bringing Domino's Pizza to school cafeterias across the country. The Dairy Checkoff worked with Domino's in 2010 to develop a version of their pizza that, unlike their standard slices, met the USDA's nutritional requirements for the National School Lunch Program. The result was the Domino's Smart Slice, which has less fat, less salt, and 51% white whole wheat crust. The Smart Slice debuted in 2010. By 2014, it was being served in 3,000 schools nationwide. Smart Slices are cooked at local Domino's restaurants and delivered hot to schools. This means fewer meals need to be prepared on campus, making the Smart Slice program an attractive option for school lunch administrators. The bottom line. The dairy industry's tentacles stretch deep into the federal government and have for quite some time. From dairy checkoff and cheese purchasing programs to the National School Lunch Act and the My Plate diagram, the U.S. government has taken great pains to make sure that dairy is both viewed favorably by the general public and included in as many foods as possible. But humans don't need milk to be healthy, and most people would be better off not drinking any dairy milk at all. Dairy production's contribution to climate change is substantial, and more environmentally friendly governmental policies would need to lessen our reliance on cows, not sustain it. You just listened to Why Dairy is Hiding in So Many Foods by Seth Millstein at sentientmedia.org, Part 2. And I'm Marian Erickson, your host, and I've done a bazillion episodes about dairy and even some about the history. I'll link a few in the show notes. Check out 539. Students sue school district for free speech violation for silencing her criticism of cow's milk. That's the lawsuit Physicians Committee helped bring against that Los Angeles school board. 345, Why Wasting Milk in Schools is a Bigger Problem Than You Think. 307, The Twisted History of Milk in America. Bonus number 2, Juneteenth, Dairy and Dietary Racism. 776, Taking Down Dairy is Key to Planetary Health. 769, Why Do Milk Drinkers Live Shorter Lives on Average? And 229, Cheese, A Brief History and the Origins of Why Americans Can't Get Enough. So please check those out and please share this episode with anyone who might benefit, and thanks for listening.